singing young man. His name is Ronnie Dyson here on the Weedy Gold for a Thursday at American Forces Radio. And if you'll let me make love to you, then darling child, why can't I touch you? Hey, we got a lot of action happening yet on a Thursday getting together, including the latest sound of Glenn Campbell. We'll also be digging the Assembled Multitude, Grand Funk Railroad, Bobby Vinton will be around, and all sorts of good things are going to be happening. As a matter of fact, right now, front and center, chairman of the board, and their song is Patches.
I was born and raised down in Alabama on a farm way back in the woods. I was so ragged, folks called me Patches. Papa used to tease me about it, but inside he was certain that he done the best he could. My papa was a great old man. I could see him with the shovel in his hand. The education that he never had. But he did wonders when the time got bad. But little money from the crops he raised barely paid the bills he made. Life took him down to the ground when he tried to get up. Like to kick him back down. And that day, Papa called me, lying there with his hands on my shoulders and his tears to say goodbye. I'm depending on you, son, to pull the family through. To do the rest. One day a strong rain came, washed all the crops away. And at the age of 13, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the whole world on my shoulders. Mama knew what I was going through. Every day I had to work the field, but that's the only way we got our meals. See,
Whoa, Patches. Depending on you, son. That's from the chairman of the board, and they've had their share of hit records during the scene of 1970. As you know, that is not the only record of Patches that is currently making a lot of hit all around the world. The other version, coming up in part 2 of our get-together of a Thursday here on the Gene Wheat Show, is from Clarence Carter. And, of course, none of those the original. The original goes back several years, but for the sounds of 70, we'll check them both out. Also coming up next hour, Assembled Multitude, Three Dog Night, Kenny Rogers, The Temptations, and Sergio Mendez, just to mention a few. We got to check up on what's going on in news, and then I'll be back with Miss Frida Payne.
This is the American Forces Vietnam Network. This is AFVN, serving the American fighting man 24 hours a day from the Delta to the DMZ. With transmitters in Quang Tri, Da Nang, Quy Nhon, Pleiku, and Nha Trang. With the Key Network station in Saigon, Vietnam.
Each year, many gifts going home for the Christmas holidays never reach their destination in time. Now, this is usually because they're incorrectly addressed, are hard to read, or are poorly wrapped. Don't let this happen to you. Use full addresses on all your packages.
It's 1000 hours. President Nixon tries to drum up support for a foreign aid request.
AFVN News, compiled from commercial and military news agencies.
Good morning. President Nixon met with congressional leaders at the White House today to drum up support for a supplementary foreign aid request. The first indications are the request may run into some trouble in Congress. Specifically, the president is asking for an extra $1 billion in foreign aid. About half of that would go toward building Israel's armed forces. The other major beneficiaries would be Cambodia, South Korea, and South Vietnam. Even before the White House meeting, Democrat Senator leader Mike Mansfield told newsmen that he was opposed to the additional funds. Yesterday, 5 U.S. personnel of the 196th Brigade, 23rd Infantry Division, were killed when a booby trap was detonated 8 miles southwest of Tom Key. Wounded figures were placed at 6 in the updated report released this morning. A defense witness today testified that Staff Sergeant David Mitchell never stopped at a My Lai drainage ditch where the Army says Mitchell shot unarmed civilians. Elmer Haywood said that he saw 2 men shoot into the ditch. They were identified by Haywood as Dennis Conti and Paul Nidlo. Conti was a prosecution witness. At Fort Benning, Georgia, the court-martial trial of Lieutenant William Colley heard a second day of testimony. A combat photographer said that he witnessed the execution of a large group of Vietnamese at My Lai, but the prosecution made no attempt to link the testimony with Colley, who faces charges of premeditated murder at My Lai. Newly elected Democrat Adlai Stevenson joined the Senate this week, and he was asked today what he sees as the big issue in America.
Peace has to be the overriding concern of all mankind because it's a condition of human survival in a world that is shrunk by science and threatened with nuclear destruction. And I don't mean peace only in Vietnam or the Middle East. I mean the necessities of a realistic foreign policy in the future, the necessities of scaling back a mad armaments race. Those are the overriding issues, and let's see.
The second day of the trial of Black Panther National Chairman Bobby Seale has ended with no jurors selected. Seale and Panther Eureka Huggins are being tried in New Haven, Connecticut on charges stemming from the slaying of another Panther. So far, 35 of the present of 46 prospective jurors have been dismissed. A new pool will be ready for tomorrow if they are needed. The National Conference of Catholic Bishops has reaffirmed its opposition to abortion by a vote of 224 to 8. In a strongly worded statement, the bishops declared for the first time that they considered abortions to be murders. Several archbishops told the newsmen that there was some objection to the use of the word murder, but it was kept in, as one bishop put it, to make it clear where the bishops stand. A leading Soviet astrophysicist says Lunokhod-1 is the first step toward unmanned exploration of Mars. The comment was reported by the Soviet news agency TASS, which also reported that Lunokhod-1 functioning well in its second day of operation on the moon. The UN General Assembly's main political committee has called for a complete halt to all nuclear weapon testing. The appeal was voiced in a resolution sponsored by 9 non-aligned countries. The vote was 88-0. The resolution also urges nuclear powers to adhere to the treaty banning testing in the atmosphere, in outer space, and underwater. France and Red China are the only 2 nuclear powers that have not done so yet. All but 17 widows of 78 miners killed in Farmington, West Virginia 2 years ago have agreed to settle a prolonged feud with the Consolidation Coal Company. Company officials said today that 61 of the widows have agreed to accept compensation payments of $10,000 each. At the same time, it was learned that attorney Kenneth Yablonsky has planned a $4 million protective federal court suit against the coal company on behalf of 35 of the widows. Yablonsky said the suit will be dropped if and when the council agreement is finalized. The United Auto Workers Union has ordered its men not to report back to work tomorrow at General Motors Fisher Body Plant, rather to report back to work tomorrow at General Motors Fisher Body Plant in Detroit. The plant announced the back-to-work call earlier today. But the union said that the GM strike is not over yet, and it won't be over until tentative contracts are ratified by rank and file. This is Army Specialist David Bruce Muncie, and that's AFVN News to the Hour.
AFVN News, compiled from commercial and military news agencies.
Hey, welcome back to Part 2. Here is Frida Payne.
Me
go for a Thursday with a wailing sounds of Frida Payne and her ever-loving band of gold. Shall we double them up and make another goodie? The Impressions front and center. Turn on to me. That's from the Impressions All Thursday style at American Forces Radio and Television Service. This is the Weedy One. Hi, Gene Weed for a Thursday full of all the good things. A little while ago, we heard the chairman of the board and their version of Patches, and I promised back last hour that I'd play the Clarence Carter version this hour. So let it be.
I was born and raised down in Alabama on a farm way back up in the woods. I was so ragged that folks used to call me Patches. Papa used to tease me about it, because deep down inside he was hurt because he'd done all he could. My papa was a great old man. I can see him with a shovel in his hand. See, education he never had. He did wonders when the times got bad. The little money from the crops he raised barely pays the bills we made. Oh, life had reached him down to the ground. When he tried to get up, life would take him back down. One day, Papa called me to his dying bed, put his hands on my shoulder, then in tears he said, Patches, I'm depending on your son to pull the family through. My son is all left up to you. Oh, I can hear Papa's voice say, Patches, I'm depending on your son. I'll try to do my best. It's up to you to do
We shall see how the battle works out as to which becomes the big winner of the two, but one of the two has got to happen because it's a good song. It's called Patches, and that's Clarence Carter.
Arnold, the number 2 this week. This is the Jackson 5, and I'll be there. Now 17 minutes in front of 12 noon.
Vietnam Network presents another exciting episode in the life of the most fantastic crime fighter the world has ever known. Well, as you know, several days ago, the wonderful white-winged warrior leaped out of the police commissioner's office window without his wings. Two things happened as a result of this.
As the winged warrior was sadly leaving the building, he struck the mayor of Midland City.
Who at the time was happily entering the building.
2, the mayor who suffered a head injury was laid up in a hospital bed.
3, the winged warrior who suffered a lapse of memory tried to lay an egg.
One big white egg, and is it ever going to be neat?
Well, 3 days have elapsed since this double tragedy took place, and 2 things have happened.
1, the mayor has progressed very nicely.
And will probably be discharged today.
4.
3.
3, the winged warrior also has progressed very nicely.
I don't think I will lay one big white egg.
Wonderful.
Very
Nice. That's
Good.
great.
I think I'll make it a dozen big white eggs.
Not wonderful. Not good at all.
Bad.
Not nice.
Well, the commissioner and his secretary immediately began an intensive effort to restore the winged warrior's memory.
Repeat after me. I am not a chicken.
I am not a chicken.
I am a fantastic crime fighter.
I am a fantastic...
Not you.
Not you.
Who?
I think she means me.
Who?
I am a fantastic crime fighter.
I can't lay a dozen eggs.
Who can't lay a dozen eggs?
I can't even lay one egg.
Now, that's going too far.
Commissioner,
Yes, I am.
I think this calls for a crash effort.
Want to get his arms?
Do you have his legs?
I mean, heck, I'm entitled to my opinion.
1,
I mean, there's 2 sides to every story.
2,
Why don't we 3 have a meeting and vote on it?
3,
Want to make that 2 again?
2,
I'll write down all the reasons I think I'm right.
3,
You write down all the reasons you think you're right.
4.
Don't you believe in equal rights for chickens?
And several minutes later, in the commissioner's office...
Yes, Miss Helfinger.
I'm happy to report the winged warrior no longer thinks he's a chicken.
Excellent.
However, I regret to report the mayor has been hospitalized again.
You don't mean...
Yes, just as he was entering the building.
Remind me to send a dozen roses.
I'd make it a dozen eggs.
You don't mean...
Yes, he tried to fly to the hospital.
Well, now the mayor has blown his cool. Is this madness never to end? However, isn't it a lucky thing that Chicken Man knows who he is again, with all of the important Midland City events coming up, like the big class reunion? Join us again tomorrow when the American Forces Vietnam Network presents another exciting episode in the life of the most fantastic crime fighter the world has ever known.
Well, now we know what to look forward to, and I'm not so sure that's good. Peter and Gordon, 1964, Solid Gold. For Tommy, that's Peter Townshend, The Who, See Me, Feel Me. That's Sound 20 from the Stateside Survey. 15 minutes, make it 15, make it 5 minutes now. In front of 12 noon, 5 minutes away from news on the American Forces Vietnam Network.
In 1969 alone, over 47,000 Viet Cong and NVA soldiers rallied to the government. This is 47,000 men taken without casualties. The South Vietnamese government's Chu Hoi program remains one of the most dramatic and vital programs ever initiated. If the enemy comes to you, treat him with the respect and courtesy he deserves. Remember, it's not easy to turn yourself over to someone you've been fighting for years.
Taking us up to news at the top of the hour. This is the Kinks now, and Lola, take it easy. We'll see you tomorrow. Have yourself a good day.
Down in Oklahoma, where you drink champagne and it tastes just like cherry cola. C-O-L-A cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name and then
American Forces Vietnam Network. This is AFVN, serving the American fighting man 24 hours a day from the Delta to the DMZ. With transmitters in Quang Tri, Da Nang, Quy Nhon, Pleiku, and Nha Trang. With the key network station in Saigon, Vietnam.
There's a 5-letter word in common use among Vietnam servicemen that means security and happiness. It's spelled D-E-R-O-S, and it means you're going home. It happens to all of us over here. Make sure that you're ready. Keep your shot records up to date. Don't delay your deros when it rolls around.
It's 1200 hours. 2 men make it to the top of a California mountain.
AFVN News, compiled from commercial and military news agencies.
Good afternoon. It took 30 days, and it took a lot of endurance and courage, but they made it. Warren Harding, 46 years old, and Dean Caldwell, 27, conquered the 3,000-foot southeast face of El Capitan Mountain in Yosemite National Park in California today. This was El Capitan's last major unclimbed route, and Harding and Caldwell stepped up on the slope dome at 10:14 a.m. Pacific time. And an hour later, they completed the climb from there to the very top. Harding and Caldwell had endured more than 20 days of dangling from the vertical stone wall of the mountain. Day after day, they were drenched by rain, and at one point, park rangers decided that they would try to rescue them. But the 2 men said no, they would make it, and they did. Perhaps not as sensational as men walking on the moon, or as computers programmed to take a little machine to scoop up lunar dirt, but it's still quite exciting, because it was 2 men doing something that still had not been done here on Earth in all these thousands of years. The story from Pakistan can be described in one word this afternoon: tragedy. Bert Quint of CBS News has details.
No one knows yet, and perhaps no one ever will know, how many persons have died in the latest of Pakistan's frequent cyclones. The best government guess at this point is that the total will reach 100,000. A catastrophe by any standard, but not nearly as great a one as was feared at first. But even as more and more bodies are found, washed ashore by the now relatively quiet waters of the Bay of Bengal, a new catastrophe is threatening. Government officials admit that their relief efforts are not sufficient, despite help from several countries. Relief parties have not been able to get to all of the disaster areas, and so bodies, human and animal, lay rotting in the water and on the ground. Some near rice fields where farmers are right now working at the harvest. In many places, survivors are risking death anew by drinking water from pools where bodies still float. Cholera seems likely to come, to add to an epidemic already serious in this part of the world. Bert Quint, CBS News, Dhaka, East Pakistan.
Moscow says that its lunar hot rod was off on another exploration trip today. Soviet technicians landed the robot moon vehicle yesterday, and Lolcow moved off its landing vehicle. Today, the 8-wheeled vehicle moved again by remote control and beamed back TV pictures of its own tracks in the moon dust. The Russians say a Lolcow one amounts to a Model T with some really fancy robot explorers planned for the future. A former Army photographer has told the court-martial board that he saw the events at My Lai, but he never saw First Lieutenant William Cully, the man being tried on charges of murdering Vietnamese civilians. The witness was Ron Heberger, who made $35,000 from the sale of pictures that he took at My Lai on March the 16th, 1968. He testified that he had heard automatic weapons fire in the village that day, and he saw 2 soldiers standing in front of 50 to 75 Vietnamese who were gathered together squatting down. In Haberger's words, "I heard firing, and I looked over to my right and saw people trying to get up and run. They just fell down." Under cross-examination by defense counsel, he said, "I never did see Lieutenant Cully." While Lieutenant Cully undergoes trial at Fort Benning, his old platoon sergeant, David Mitchell, is being tried at Fort Hood, Texas. And today, a 5th witness gave Mitchell an alibi for the time when civilians were said to have been herded together in a ditch and killed. One rifleman, Elmer Haywood, said that he and Mitchell were sitting together outside the village when the killing took place. But his testimony became clouded when he admitted that today's statements conflict with earlier statements made to Army investigators. A federal appeals court in California has ruled that newsmen cannot be compelled to divulge professional information unless there is a compelling public need. The story from San Francisco and CBS News correspondent Jim Hedlund.
Earl Caldwell first got in trouble with a federal judge here when he refused to testify in court about the Black Panthers. Caldwell was found in contempt, but the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has now set aside that conviction on the grounds that newsmen do have a special place in society as watchdogs for the public.
I think it's not just a personal victory. It's something that is absolutely essential for the entire industry. I think that it's something we didn't have before. When we started off, the government said that there is no journalistic privilege. That journalists are no different from any other group of people. And the court said that's not true, that they recognize the role that we play, and they've given us the protection that we need to continue.
However, the court ruling applies only to New York Times reporter Caldwell. The opinion says reporters dealing with groups less sensitive than the Panthers might still have to show up in a court. Jim Hedlund, San Francisco.
President Nixon has asked Congress for an additional $1.035 billion in foreign aid funds for U.S. allies in Southeast Asia. Mr. Nixon said the increased aid to American allies is needed because of the reduction of U.S. involvement in South Vietnam. South Vietnam Vice President Key toured the Air Force Academy at Colorado Springs, Colorado today as part of his 17-day tour of U.S. military installations. The Vice President and his wife were kept isolated from newsmen and at least 3 youthful demonstrators. Key laid a wreath at the foot of the Academy's War Memorial as a gesture honoring the 65 Air Force cadets killed in Southeast Asia. Israel apparently wants promises of continued military and economic support from the United States before returning to the Middle East peace talks. Informed sources in Tel Aviv say that Israeli Foreign Minister Abba Eban was asking for sophisticated military equipment when he met with Secretary of State William Rogers in Washington today. Another condition, a more permanent Suez Canal truce.
USO Showtime, a presentation of the United Service Organizations in cooperation with the American Forces Vietnam Network.
Hi, you beautiful people. Nellie here. Our 20th President, James Garfield, was born this day, 1831. In Brazil, it's National Flag Day and a special Swadika to you men from Thailand. Today, your letters come from Detroit, Michigan, and from Corpus Christi, Texas. And today's Sweetheart winner is from Tennessee. Good things going today. Here is the letters, box tops, Mrs. Touré Cobbler, and the medics and the patients at A Company, 326 Medical Battalion.
Give me a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone, I'm a-going home. Oh, my baby just wrote me a letter. I don't care how much money I gotta spend. Got to get back to my baby. Lonely days are gone, I'm a-going home. Oh, my baby just wrote me a letter. When
a nice one to get things going. Here, this letter is from Denise, and she comes from Detroit, Michigan. Hi, my name is Denise, and you're probably wondering what I look like, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, as you can see, I can't type very well. Well, that's not true. She can type better than I can. Yeah, that's saying a lot. Anyway, back to myself. I'm 18 years old. I graduated this last year, and I have long, dark brown hair and hazel eyes. I'm 5'6", and right now I'm planning on going back to school this winter. And I really am interested in you, and I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing for me over there. Please write to me, as I'm interested in hearing from anyone who is interested in writing to me. Till later, Denise. If you'd like to write to Miss Denise, just drop me a line in care of letters, USO Saigon, APO in country 96243. And let's see, she comes from Detroit, Denise, D-E-N-I-S-E, and her last name P-E-S-C-I. And I'll be most happy to send her name and address out to you. Meanwhile, who will answer? Peter Nero, and this is to spec for Ronald Dahl, who is with the 110th Transportation Company. Being that you're so sweet and are always doing sweet things, why not send something sweet? Flowers. Write for a colored brochure of the flowers you can send from right where you are. Flowers, USO Saigon, APO in country 96243. And of course, she'll know who sent them. The sweet one. Yeah. You're all so sweet. Papa's got a brand new bag, Otis Redding, and this is to Bob Sadama. And he says he is the best looking one. Okay, I'll buy that. Ordnance, 632nd Hugh Company.
Come in, sister. Papa's in the thing. Ain't too hip. On the new pretty thing. It ain't no drag. Papa's got a brand new bag. It's on the deck. He's going to fly. Don't play him cheap. He's no, he's not shy. He's mashed potato, the alligator. Jump back and jack. See you later, alligator. Come in, sister. Papa's in the thing. Ain't too hip there. On that new breed thing. Ain't no drag. Papa's bought himself a brand new bag. Come on. Hey, hey. Come on. He's out of sight. He's up uptight. Come on and groove on your out of sight. Papa's got a brand new bag. Papa got it. Papa got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Go, man. Go. Got it. Don't play it cheap, you know we're not shy. You mashed potato, the alligator, jump back and jack, I'll see you later, alligator. Come in, sister, Papa's in the thing. Ain't you here, that new green thing? Ain't no drag. Papa's got a brand new bag. Come on. Hey, hey. Come on. Hey, hey. Come on. Hey, hey. Dirk. Hold on. I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming. Got to grooving, on the grooving, grooving. Come in, sister. Papa's in the thing. Ain't you here? Papa do breathing. Ain't no drag. Little Mammy's got a brand new bag. It's in my feet, I got it. It's in my head, I got it. On my shoulders, I got it. In my knees, I got it. The back part, I got it. The shoulders again, I got it. Soul man, I got it.
Yeah, it's over, huh? I was beginning to wonder. If you want to write to someone who thinks you're the most wonderful man in the world, yeah, write to a USO pen pal. Just write the letters, USO Saigon, APO in country 96243. And by the way, here's a young lady for you men up in I-Corps who thinks you're pretty wonderful. I'm Nelda, and I live in Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm 22, dark hair and eyes, and I love to write letters. Who are you? I sure hope you will answer. Tell me where you're from, what your interests are, etc. So I said earlier, I love to write letters, but I also love to receive them, and that's the purpose in writing. I love to read, play basketball, dance, hike, go to movies. Just love to do anything to have a good time. Do I sound like a real square? Well, I'm not. I think I am just as interested I'm just as interesting as the next person. Well, all right, Miss Nelda. Okay, we'll write and find out, won't we? Just write to me in care of letters. USO Saigon, APO in country 96 243, and I'll be most happy to send you Nelda's name and address. I was fixing to say she left out her last name, but she didn't. S-A-E-R-Z, and she comes from Corpus Christi. And this, by the way, is for you men up at I-Corps. Miss Nelda is 22 years old. Okay? Be my baby, Dick and Dee Dee. And this is to Humble, Durr, George, Ordorn, Leonard, and Urick, and all the short-timers at the 15th Aeroport up in my old hometown of Da Nang.
This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
Let's go to side 2 now to continue with AFVN Saigon.
This is the Orient Express. We'll continue with more music right after news at 2:05.
This is the American Forces Vietnam Network. From Saigon, Channel 54 AM, 99.9 FM. A strong America depends upon your support. Support through your purchase of United States savings bonds. Bonds help Uncle Sam to meet his commitments, and they provide security for your future. Bonds and Freedom Shares are a star-spangled savings plan designed to help both you and